So Barad now is not just writing about physics, they're actually offering a theory of ethics. If we are never separate, then we are never innocent, right? Our entanglements matter, what we touch, what we ignore, what we make visible, what we refuse to see. These things shape the world, and that's what makes this book so powerful. It doesn't let you off the hook. It says there is no outside. You are part of this. So then the question becomes, what kind of world are you helping to make real? Hello and welcome to the Revolutionary Reading Series with Professor Peyto, where we take the theory off the shelf and put it where it belongs, in the streets, in our bodies, and in our breath. I am recording this on the very first day of Inner Child July, and I want to open with something personal. I'm actually deep in my Saturn return right now, which if you know, you know, it's that astrological reckoning around age 28 to 30 that basically the universe is saying like, all right, enough pretending. It's time to grow and grieve and take accountability for your own becoming. And part of that for me is asking what parts of my life need more exploration and what parts of me need to come home to myself. I recently found my birth certificate tucked into a small little box that I hadn't found in years. And look, I found this cute little bracelet of mine and also a couple like crystals that I probably picked out at some like science museum gift shop with the serious intention of becoming magical. I feel like finding them all of these years later felt like something opened, like it was like an invitation, like a memory that was reaching back to me. And I think that's kind of what this month is about, not just nostalgia, definitely nostalgia, but not just that, but like a return. Not even just looking back at the child that I was, but asking like, where did that girl go? And where is she sort of still waiting for me to come back to her? And where is she potentially still showing up in my life or needing attention or whatever it was, right? So today I'm going to talk about a book that says the universe isn't made of separate things. It's made of entanglements, of relationships, of everything touching everything else all the time. This book is a little bit quantum physics, okay, which don't be intimidated because it's also deeply queer, and I would honestly even say somewhat spiritual. So today we're diving into Meeting the Universe Halfway by Karen Barad, physicist and feminist philosopher. And Meeting the Universe Halfway cracked open my understanding of like reality itself. Barad is basically here to tell you that nothing is neutral, nothing is untouched, and you are already part of the experiment. So Barad's central question is both scientific and ethical. What happens when we stop imagining ourselves as separate from the world that we study? What if the knower and the known, the observer and the observed, are not actually separate at all, but emerging through the encounter? And that's the heart of what Barad calls agential realism. And yes, that name, it sounds heavy, but the concept is actually really simple and I would say deeply resonant. But nothing exists independently. Everything becomes through relation to other things and beings and forces and whatnot. If you are the kind of person who hears nothing exists independently and starts reaching for your copy of Descartes' like a security blanket, pause, because that's not, it's not saying that nothing is real. It's saying that meaning and the effects and boundaries of any given thing aren't fixed in isolation. They emerge through the encounter, through context, through material and social relationships. And that idea is not just theoretical, it's personal. Because for me, returning to my inner child is not some like whimsical detour. It's actually a radical, entangled act, right? It's remembering that she never existed in isolation. That girl, she was shaped by her environment, by time, place, family, silence, softness, survival. And so am I now, right? And so are you. And that's what Barad means when they talk about intra-action, not interaction, which assumes already separate parts, like pre-existing separate entities, but intra-action, where even the boundaries between things emerge through their encounter, their relationship. So like this podcast, This podcast does not have a single fixed meaning. Its meaning is formed right now by you, by the place that you're listening from, by the questions that you're holding, by the quiet voice inside you that has been raised and shaped from your own upbringing, right? So Barad is drawing from quantum physics here, where Bohr discovered that the mere act of a tool being used to observe a particle changes the outcome. You can't step outside of the world to study it neutrally. Every measurement that you make, every question that you ask becomes part of what is being measured, right? So Barad now is not just writing about physics, they're actually offering a theory of ethics. If we are never separate, then we are never innocent, right? Our entanglements matter, what we touch, what we ignore, what we make visible, what we refuse to see. These things shape the world, and that's what makes this book so powerful. It doesn't let you off the hook. It says there is no outside. You are part of this. So then the question becomes, what kind of world are you helping to make real? Because if we are never separate, then we are never innocent, right? Our presence has consequences. Our attention is an act of creation. And that's what makes meeting the universe halfway so powerful. It doesn't let us hide behind objectivity. It says you're already entangled. So what the fuck are you going to do about it? And then Barad offers diffraction as their sort of core metaphor. So not reflection, but diffraction, where when waves bend around edges and when difference creates new patterns, when grief meets theory or science meets spirit or child meets adult, right? What emerges through that bend? So this book isn't something to conquer. It's not something you're going to like master. It's something to meet with curiosity and humility and care, and maybe even meet it a little bit halfway, and maybe with your old charm bracelet on. But Barad isn't giving us answers. They're giving us a method, a way of approaching the world that honors entanglement, that resists purity and distance, that makes room for uncertainty and curiosity and for care. Because if we are always already inside the world, then knowledge isn't a thing that we carry, it's something we do together. It's a practice of accountability, a commitment to noticing our impact, not just what we say, but what our saying does. And so what do we do with all of this? We remember that knowledge is not something to collect like trophies, right? We participate in it. We have to stop pretending that we can even be neutral observers. We have to stop pretending that we are separate of the world that we live in, standing outside of the systems that we critique. We can begin to notice how our choices, our silences, our attention, our language, all of that shapes the world around us. And then we can take responsibility, not just for what we say, but for what that saying does. She says, in fact, the agential realist ontology that I propose does not take separateness to be an inherent feature of how the world is. But neither does it denigrate separateness as mere illusion, an artifact of human consciousness led astray. Difference cannot be taken for granted. It matters indeed. It is what matters. Matter is neither fixed and given, nor the mere end result of different processes. Matter is produced and productive, generated and generative. Matter is agentive, not a fixed essence or property of things. Mattering is differentiating, and which differences come to matter? Matter in the iterative production of different differences. She also talks briefly about posthumanism, which is what I did my dissertation on. And while I was looking for a definition of posthumanism to use in my dissertation, it was really hard to actually come across one that I liked, but I did underline this part right here. Refusing the anthropocentrisms of humanism and anti-humanism, posthumanism marks the practice of accounting for the boundary-making practices by which the human and its others are differentially delineated and defined. Posthumanism, as I intend it here, is not calibrated to the human. On the contrary, it is about taking issue with human exceptionalism while being accountable for the role we play in the differential constitution and differential positioning of the human among other creatures, both living and non-living. So let's back up for a second, because humanism, the way that I talk about humanism is the movement. Think back to the Enlightenment when they were actually trying to come up with a definition that the Academy could support of what it means to be human, right? And who was in the academy at the time? All these white men. So what is a human? It's a white man, and then the more far off you go from there, you're like less of a human. And then we arrive at, how they justified slavery through eugenics and the Three-Fifths Compromise, that whole thing, right? That's the logic. So anti-humanism was originally sort of a reactionary theory that aimed to decenter the human, but then kind of recentered it in the process. It was like a little bit of like angsty teen energy. Unfortunately, there's some confusion, I think, between posthumanists in general, because some people regard posthumanism to mean after the human or beyond the human, as in cyborgs or robots, like what happens when we can cure mortality. That is not a posthumanist question in my mind. Posthumanism, the way that I have used it in my dissertation, also was reflective of this, where it's actually taking issue with human exceptionalism, right? It's starting to put into practice that the human is not at the center of the universe. And so here is where I would say Braiding Sweetgrass is a excellent follow-up. And really, I look to Dr. Patricia Kaishan and Robin Wall Kimmerer and even like Donna Haraway, right? These thinkers who are grounding their analysis in the natural sciences and also in the land itself, right? Refusing to operate solely in the logics of the academy when it comes to science and I would say spirituality too, depending on who you're reading. But anyway, I could go on and on about this book. I'm not going to. I really do encourage you to check it out. This book reminds us that the boundaries that we draw between the self and other, subject and object, theory and life even, are porous and in flux. We don't just live in the universe, we are in relationship with it, and we meet it halfway. So if this video sparked something in you, please share it with a friend, a mentor, your classroom, your community. Let the meaning ripple, because meaning does not live here on the page or screen. It emerges between us. All right, class is dismissed, but the revolution is just getting started. This has been Professor Peyto reminding you, theory is survival, memory is magic, and you are never too old to come home to yourself. I'll see you next time.